Okay, Hazy and T in the building. I Only Touch Greatness podcast. You see it. We got Marc Emery, weed activist, the Prince of Pot, coming up right now. If you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button.
If you're looking for a mug, perhaps a hoodie, head on over to IOnlyTouchGreatness.com.
Hi, I'm Marc Emery, the Prince of Pot, and I'm coming up on the I Only Touch Greatness podcast. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you think.
Ryan Hayes and Big Mike. Never stop. I Only Touch Greatness podcast.
Air on this part, is there anything you want cut out or just want to...
No, that was great.
Hey, Marc.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
I'm Ryan, by the way. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, Ryan, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And I'm going to smoke during this interview, so you feel free to, obviously.
Oh, good. I'll see if Jody wants to roll a joint for me.
Yeah, I've actually smoked with her before one time down there at Amsterdam Cafe back in the day.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He said he smoked with you long ago.
Yeah, maybe about 12 years ago, maybe 2008.
12 years ago. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Back in the exile days. Looking
back
forward
when
to
it
my
was
exit.
back when it was frowned upon.
But back when pot was way more fun too.
Yeah, definitely.
It's all money now. It's all money in corporate.
Yeah, that's for sure. Turning up the volume a little bit there. All right. So how's your day going?
Good. Uneventful. Often no news is good news in the world today. So, but actually that's not true. I'm going out east soon, so I'm trying to enjoy as much of BC as I can. It's lovely out here for a couple of reasons. The weather's nice in British Columbia, but it's not locked down like Ontario is. That drove me crazy. I did 70 days of isolation back from March 11 to May 7th. And then I said, fuck this, right? I'm going out like once a week for groceries, not doing anything. Parks are all closed. Police are giving you the evil eye if you even walk outside. Oh, yeah. So I gave up my apartment and just kind of vagabonded with friends. And I went to Colombia to live with my girlfriend there for 3 months and her children and grandmother. And it took me 6.5 months, 6 canceled flights, 2 rejected boardings for COVID certificates and stuff like that. But I eventually got to Colombia on November 4th when I started to try and get there back in March. So, yeah, but the airlines are so screwed up by the Canadian government and their hysterical response to COVID. So, but it was great. Now I'm back. I've got to work, got no money. So I'll be going to Ontario, the belly of the beast, as it were, to start working in the legal cannabis industry, which I need to do because unfortunately, I've done my jail time. I can't get arrested anymore. It's, it's just, there's no particular reason. And I'm such a heat score if I do something illegally. No landlord can rent to me now because as soon as they see me, they're going to go, what are you doing? And I never lied to landlords. So I would have to say I'm selling weed and they're going to go, I'm sorry, guy, I'm not doing that unless you've got permits and a license. So that's where we're at in this day and age. Now, in fairness, I did fight to bring a legal environment to Canada. So it's appropriate that I get involved with that industry and see what it's like, see what can be done, see if I can earn a living and see if we can make it better.
So are you in Vancouver then? Because I'm in Coquitlam.
Yeah, I'm in North Van.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. So born and raised in Ontario, then what was life like growing up?
Well, Ontario is hoser country, right? I mean, you look at people from Ontario, Windsor and Sudbury and Sarnia, and I'm from a little less industrial town, London, Ontario. But here's the great thing. I'll be working at my brother's shop in London, Ontario called Emery Brothers Cannabis. And it's only 1 kilometer from where both my brother and I were born and raised, and 2 kilometers from the police station where I first started standing outside in 1991, handing out copies of High Times, which were illegal. So it's coming full circle. I started that. I did that in front of the London police station in April 1991. So it'll be like 30 years ago next month when I'm back.
Totally. Yeah, I got that in my notes farther on. I read also somewhere that at age 9 you started your first business selling stamps.
Yes, stamp treasure. Back in those days, you would buy stamps through the mail. People would send booklets of stamps to you. You'd take out what you want. You'd send the booklet back, and you'd send the money in an envelope inside it. It relied totally on trust. So that's my first important lesson is that I went pretty well bankrupt in that one when somebody didn't return all the stamps. Like the idea is you send them stamps, they pick the ones they want. I was starting to accumulate valuable stamps through a variety of ways because I discovered the value of money younger than most kids, right? That's why I got into vintage comic books next at age 11, which I become incredibly successful at. And by the time I'm 14, I'm making more than my dad is working at 3M, the factory he worked at all his life, by selling these old vintage comic books. But first, I started selling stamps. And at age 9 till I was 11. And then one day a guy didn't send me my stamps back. And that kind of wiped me out. Somebody's act of distrust. So then I had to figure out, okay, I can't have a business model where I rely on others' trustworthiness because I know I'm trustworthy and I'm trying to develop a business reputation of trustworthiness. So I've got to make it that they give me the money first and I'll send them the goods after I get the money. And that's the model I did starting at age 11 with Marc's Comic Room. Started on January 1st, 1971. So that was over 50 years ago back in January. I started my first really successful business.
And then you owned a comic book store, right? Of course. How long did you own the store for?
Okay, that was January 1st to March 15th, 1975. I had it for just over 4 years. You know, I handled Spider-Man #1 in Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man, 8 times in that time. And I remember selling it for about $300 for each one. Now the thing is like $25,000 or something, right? All those X-Men #1, which I sold a lot of that. The hardest comic to get in my day, the old vintage ones, was Hulk. Hulk #1 to 6, the original 1962 to 63 issues. They're incredibly hard to find.
When did you move out west?
Well, that was done via Asia. Every now and then I periodically get discouraged with my country and I need to take off. And the first time I really needed to do that was in 1992. I went to live in Asia with my kids for a couple of years and my female partner at the time. And that was an awesome experience going through Asia, man. That was the most valuable thing I may have ever done in my life, is to force myself to go and do and see things that are difficult, arduous, and on a low budget. And that was really awesome. But I went broke. I lost all my money building a house in the rainforest of Sumatra, Indonesia. It was a crazy idea. I don't know what I was thinking. I was a little like that guy from the Mosquito Coast, eventually sort of going a little crazy in the mountain regions of the netherworlds at the equator. Lovely place. But I lost all my available money building a big house there. And so I had to come back. And I didn't want to come back to London, Ontario and have to be humiliated by admitting failure. So I went to Vancouver and arrived there on March 1st, 1994. And I started, immediately got some illegal banned High Times magazine and Grow Your Own Stone and whatever I could find that people would front me. And I went and sold them on the street for 2 or 3 months. And remarkably, desperation will make you very ambitious. And I would sell. And eventually I started selling enough to kind of make enough to pay for daily living, selling illegal, banned High Times magazines, grow books, and anything to do with marijuana was illegal. So there was a big pent-up market for it. I'd sell it at bus stops. I went down to the universities to sell to students. And then I started wholesaling. Like I would go into variety stores and say, listen, High Times is illegal. It hasn't been available, but you'll sell it really fast. Would you like to buy copies from me? And I raised the cover price $1 so I could let those people have 35% markup. And eventually I was in dozens of stores with High Times magazine and Grow Your Own Stone. And eventually my own newsletter called the Marijuana and Hemp Newsletter, which became Cannabis Culture magazine eventually.
Yeah, I got that coming up later. While we're on that topic, then you also ended up on the front of the Globe and Mail or New York Times.
No, but you're close. I have been in New York Times, but I was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
on December 10th, 1995, and the headline was "Pot Seed Merchant." This is what killed me. Pot seed merchant winked at by police prospers in Canada. And it's a wonderful article, actually. It was very accurate, but a ton of hurt came down 3 weeks later because I could be in all the Canadian newspapers I wanted and nothing bad ever happened. But whenever I appeared on Rolling Stone magazine or the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or High Times magazine, I got raided each time. Because important people would call and say, listen, this guy is boasting that he is selling hundreds of thousands of seeds to Americans from Canada. And he's doing it with the implication that he's immune, that somehow he can't be hurt. And in fact, I would be raided in Canada many times, but they didn't hurt me. They took all my inventory, which, believe me, is really hurtful, because the first 2 raids, they took about $250,000 worth of stuff. It's hard to recover from that. You don't get insurance for seeds or weed when they're taken by police. But it took me, the first raid was on January 4th, 1996. They took about $250,000 worth of material, and it took me 8 months to recover, like to just get to where I was. But that's a nice milestone. And as soon as I recovered, I moved across the street and set up a marijuana paraphernalia superstore, which is where cannabis culture is right now at 307 West Hastings. And then we get raided on December 16th in the evening of 1997, pretty well 2 years after the first raid, and they take $250,000 again. And by then, I was employing 45 people. We had the Cannabis Cafe, Hemp BC, Marc Emery Seeds Direct. Pot TV didn't start. That was the first video broadcast service ever done on the internet. Our first video broadcast was April 26th, 2000, but we started out building it on January 1st, 2000 as my Millennium product. Probably that's the most revolutionary thing I ever did, along with selling seeds. Seeds took more risk, but Pot TV lost money, probably lost $1 million to $1.5 million in the first 6 years because data bandwidth was so expensive. The more successful we got, the more it cost me in bandwidth charges. And we were like paying scandalous amounts on a monthly basis, like $10,000, $20,000 to pay for bandwidth that you would pay, $1.50 for now, because flash media and bandwidth prices have come down categorically. That's why the technology existed. But the reason nobody ever came up with a video before Pot TV, and this is what I found out, that even though I could produce it and we could send it out, there was no fiber optics available to carry that signal in real time in such a way that people could see it. But eventually they started. Over the next year, the whole all of North America has fiber optics. It's installed incredibly quickly to meet the digital era. And remember, it was dial-up, but dial-up didn't work. You had to have a modem. You had to have really good. And eventually that happened. So by 2002, we're paying like $30,000 a month for bandwidth because we're getting more successful. USA Today wrote good things about Pot TV because it was the only thing of its kind. Because you needed someone who was going to give a lot of money to something that was going to lose money, and that was the seed business. So the seed business would eventually we gave away $5 million to things in 10 years that weren't belonging to me. Plus, we underwrote Pot TV for $1 million because that's what it lost in that time. So, we're subsidizing everything. Now, the thing I guess I'm really proudest of is the Colorado Medical Marijuana Initiative in 2000, because I paid for the majority of that. $45,000 went to that. And that was to get the signatures to put it on the ballot. And then I did Arizona and Washington, D.C. in 98, Arizona in 2002. I financed a lot of Alaska in 2002, 4, and 6. 2000, 2002, and 4. And, we were trying to sponsor whatever we could do with any ballot initiative in any jurisdiction, because it was like a great fun way to subvert the U.S. democratic system in favor of the pot people. They would send me money for seeds. I would send the seeds. They would grow tons of weed that's still being grown today from those seeds. And then with that money, I would try and make marijuana legal through ballot initiatives, rallies. I would support various organizations. Back in the old days, it was called the Linda Smith Institute. It's George Soros's thing now. It was then, actually. But we're going back 25 years here when I first started doing all that. So,
What did the city of Vancouver think when you arrived on the scene then in '94?
Well, Philip Owen, the mayor, was apoplectic. Now, actually, after all this happened, years later, we became friends, which is kind of funny because when the New York Times wrote a big piece on me, causing all my subversion, sending all these seeds around the world, sending them to America, sending them to Canada, selling them overtly, leading rallies, demonstrations, causing shit in Vancouver, starting 420, starting Cannabis Day. Like suddenly within 2 years, there was a revolution going on in Canada and Vancouver especially. And the very conservative mayor, Philip Owen, he was just thunderstruck and really upset. Like he wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't talk to me. He told the New York Times, by the end of this year, Emery is going to be toast. He actually used that word, toast.
Yeah, I read that.
And they did. They chased me right out of the city, and everybody involved with Cannabis Culture magazine is chased out of the city. And we do like what Chiang Kai-shek did when he got kicked out of communist China. When the communists won, he went to Taiwan and set up shop there. Well, that's what we had to do on the Sunshine Coast, where we were fairly anonymous, didn't cause trouble. But as it turns out, in 3 years on the Sunshine Coast, I advanced the seed business and the Cannabis Culture magazine and pot TV tremendously outside of police scrutiny. So that turns out that Philip Owen and the police did me a favor because I needed 3 years of reprieve because I'd just been raided 4 times, arrested 8 times in the space of 2 years in Vancouver. Yeah. So Philip Owen got rid of me and he was happy and we didn't have a store anymore. And for 2 or 3 years, there was nothing going on in Vancouver except 420 and Cannabis Day, but I was very content to do that. And then we come back in the election, the BC election of 2001, and we end up having 79 candidates for the BC Marijuana Party, which cost me about $160,000 paid for by seeds. Now, you can't have illegal crime profits finance an entire campaign and election. So I had to get $160,000 and give it to myself and declare that as taxable income, which caused me a shitload of problems later. And then I give it to the campaign because in British Columbia, you can give unlimited amounts. So I to this day, I'm the largest contributor to any provincial election campaign. I gave $160,000 to the BC Marijuana Party in the 2001 campaign. We had a candidate in every riding, all 79 ridings. And when we did that, I said, wouldn't it be great if we came back and set up shop in the exact same location that we got kicked out of because it was available? My old landlord said, Marc, it's available. Do you want it? And we came back as the BC Marijuana Party bookshop. And what we did is we sold the exact same things again, seeds, bongs, pipes, except theoretically it was owned by the political party, which you can do and is in a large degree protected. So we never did get raided there for all the activity we did. But here's the thing. So, I'm an arrogant guy. A few people would dispute that. A likable but arrogant guy. So what happened is I couldn't believe it. The mayor, once we come back, the mayor, Philip Owen, seems to be a changed man. Suddenly he's been educated by Ethan Nadelman and the Linda Smith Institute and all this George Soros people. And now he's in favor of legalization in some bizarre change of fate. And this is something that's going to happen to me throughout my life, is that all the people who persecuted me to some degree will come around and advocate for legalization. Never enough to benefit me in any real way. But nonetheless, it becomes an interesting thing to observe in the next 20 years. So Philip Owen starts saying, well, maybe we should think of ways to legalize and have a safe injection site. And he's acting really strange. And he never brings me up again. And he doesn't have me rated. Okay, so this is great. In 2002, I run for mayor of Vancouver because he's not going to run again. A guy named Larry Campbell wins under the guise of being in favor of legalization. But beware of such people because he did sweet fuck all, really. And he's now in the Senate profiting by a reputation he never earned. But anyway, okay, so in 2002, I start doing I run for mayor. I'm financing rallies all around the world. By now, I've established with Dana Beal the global marijuana marches around the world, and I'm financing all of those. and they're costing like 40, 50 grand a year minimum to finance posters and information and networking for the global marijuana. So now we've established 420s in Vancouver, and they're spreading. Ours was the first one in the world. Now they're spreading all over. Cannabis Day spread all over Canada. Yeah. Everybody had a Cannabis Day at the legislature. Now we've got Pot TV streaming shows regularly, a unique, one of a kind, and we've got Cannabis Culture magazine all over the world. I'm in my heyday. I'm selling more seeds. The seed sales peaked in 2002. And in November 2002, the drug czar of the United States, John Walters, comes to Vancouver to give a speech to try and stop it all. Stop me, stop legalization, stop Larry Campbell, stop Philip Owen, just stop your legalization shit, Vancouver, was the theme. And I found out about it, and it was like $500 for a table for 10 people. So the newspapers leaked it to me. The Vancouver Chamber of Commerce was more than happy to sell me a table of 5 for $500. And we ruthlessly heckled John Walters all night until he had a meltdown. He got red in the face, and he swore he would get me. And sure enough, 3 days later, an investigation of me starts, and that eventually, get this, involves 31 departments of the United States and Canada, including DEA, FBI, Homeland Security, Immigration, ICE, RCMP, British Columbia Police. It's just like enormous. My phone is now surveilled and monitored for the next 3.5 years, and longer, really. My phone is monitored right up to the time I get exiled in 2010.
I saw that the lady's name was Karen too, out of all people. That
yes, Karen. Her email was Karen from Washington, because they had to prove that I knew they were American. So her email would be Karen from Washington. When she called me, it said Karen from Washington, right? So I could never say I wasn't aware they were Americans, and therefore I was helping in a conspiracy for them to grow weed. Now, eventually, I do know she's DEA. A week before I get raided, she comes to try and buy seeds from me in person. I keep telling her, I said, I'll be glad to sell you seeds. But then she says, listen, I also need to get 10 pounds of cannabis. Can you sell me 10 pounds? And I keep telling her, I told her this on the phone, in her email, and in person, the same thing. And eventually I say, listen, you're terrible at this. You can't go around asking people for 10 pounds and expecting that you're going to be able to successfully smuggle them back to the United States. Makes no sense at all. I don't sell pot. I'm not going to sell you pot. And I recommend you do not ask anymore, because if I didn't know better, I'd say you were a narc. Yeah. And at that point, according to my Freedom of Information request we got later, they immediately panicked and moved up my arrest. My arrest was going to be in 2 or 3 months. They were really determined to get me to sell them weed, because they were unsure that they would get away with arresting me for seeds and extraditing me. That had never been done before. And it seemed very dodgy to them, because seeds themselves don't contain any drug value. But it would be clear I was involved in a conspiracy to grow pot, but it wouldn't have a lot of public sympathy to try and extradite a guy for... Anyway, once I said, if I didn't know better, I'd think you were a narc, they had me arrested the next weekend, and along with everybody else in my organization. Oddly enough, they never found any of those seeds, though. So they didn't have any real evidence to prove that I had those seeds. And that'll also be a problem for them later on. But in any case, as we know, I did 5 years on that, but it started out at 28 to 40, came down to 10. They wanted to give me 10 for me and 2 for my partners. And eventually I held out for 5, and my partners got to plead not guilty and not go to jail, which made me feel good, because I thought no matter what happens to me, I didn't drag anybody down because of my grandiose visions, right? It's bad enough that Jody would have to go through 5 years of visiting me in prisons and dealing without me, and the hardships of coping when we can't sell seeds. And unfortunately, I did do one smart thing. I closed down Cannabis Culture's printed version because it was losing small amounts of money. Not that we could sustain it, but if Jody was going to have to do a magazine, deal with losses, deal with all the other things, it would be impossible. So we wrapped that up just before I went to prison. And of course, magazines haven't made money for 10, 15 years now. None of them make money. Yeah, they're online, and people don't even know how to read a magazine. I find it difficult to have that kind of attention span. Whereas the phone, I'll look at my phone for 4 hours and I won't complain. But if I open a magazine, and I know that I love magazines, for one, been a publisher and editor. I love cannabis, and I am hard pressed to spend 1 hour looking through a magazine. So I know they're dead because I won't read them, and they don't sell. I've looked at the numbers. They're all terrible. No advertiser's really getting their money's worth when they buy an ad in a magazine. So we're going through some strange times as a culture and as a worldwide culture, but also as a cannabis culture. Because you know what? There were at one time a ton of magazines, Dope, Mary Jane, High Times, and I don't see any of them anywhere anymore. Not on newsstands, not anywhere. So I don't know where they're being sold, and I don't know where they're being.
Sell them in Safeway.
Yeah, that's that. Well, what's the
magazine?
What's the rage nowadays, though? Are not news magazines, but Time and Newsweek put out a ton of magazines about people like the Beatles or John Lennon or Bob Dylan. This is what Rolling Stone is doing too, or Einstein or the American Revolution or World War II. They put out these like annuals or these special editions, charged $11.95 US, $14.95 Canadian, and people will buy those because it's a whole issue about a subject that possibly interests them, right? So I see these all the time. I saw one yesterday, CBD magazine, right? It comes out every 2 months, and it's all paid for by the CBD industry, right? All those ads, I see that. Or Newsweek every year has a new marijuana annual out, like cannabis, what you should know, where it's available, where it's legal. Well, the government,
they didn't want you to do it, but now the government's doing it.
Well, the problem is the government subsidizes every journalist in Canada now. The government of Canada has a massive program to spend $600 million over 5 years on journalists. Now, you might think, oh, that's great. That'll guarantee journalism. No, it guarantees the journalism sucks up to the Liberal Party of Canada, who passed that into law, who keep it going. And so every journalist, in a way, is beholden to the government of Canada. So, have you noticed how activism has evaporated, disappeared ever since Canada legalized? Even though it was a terrible legalization, it was highly flawed, it's very problematic. There's virtually no activism going on in Canada. There's nothing to do. You can't hold a rally to change a regulation. That's the thing, right? Not only has COVID eliminated 420s and cannabis days and pretty well all 420 celebrations and just smoking with strangers like I used to do all the time. I still do, by the way. I haven't stopped smoking or sharing joints or anything, right? Like I don't mind getting sick. I don't even mind dying. If that's the way it goes, that's the way it goes. I'm not living in fear. Certainly not at my age, right? Like I've had 63 good years. I've lived a fabulous life, as is everybody who's my age. We all went through a period of the greatest prosperity and expansion of economy in human history, right? We've enjoyed the bountiful fruits of all our previous generations in a way no one else can. So if you have to die in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or whatever from COVID, then you get in the box because you had a great life. And this is not a time to be oppressing all the young people in the world with our bullshit because we want to live a few extra months beyond normal. Take your lumps, accept that we live in a risk society, get sick, get better, or die, whatever, and stop complaining.
Yeah. One question.
But to pursue that one, the legalization was very flawed, but there's no way to change it through activism. The only way to really change it is be part of the corporate lobby that has some influence on government because, any change in the regulations is going to be a change that benefits big business and big bureaucracy. If those two don't benefit, it's not going to happen. They care not a shit for the old legacy people in the industry, the old growers, the people in the business now. They don't give a damn about it. It's all bureaucracy is to serve the procedure of bureaucracy. It's not to get good outcomes.
If you could sit down for dinner with anybody dead or alive, who would it be?
Wow, that would be awesome. Thomas Jefferson, without question. Certainly the most brilliant man of his times. Plus, I'd ask him about those slaves. Was he really boinking a lot of slaves, or was it just Susan Hemings? Because I regard Thomas Jefferson as an extremely honorable person. But slaves were commonplace. George Washington had slaves, although in his will, apparently he would have freed them, as my understanding, as was Jefferson's will. The first act Jefferson did as president was stop the importation of all slaves, because as the president, he had that power. So he immediately stopped slavery from coming into the United States. But he could not successfully keep the South in the Union if he outlawed slavery. So that was his dilemma. He's a genius, incredibly prolific, a man of astute insight, dozens of books. I mean, the guy just lived an amazing life. So he would be my first one. If I could pick a musician, and I've met a lot of famous musicians, so I'm not that curious about musicians. But it would probably be someone from a couple of hundred years ago. Ludwig Beethoven, Bach. These people spoke German, though, so we'd need a Google Translate to have lunch together. But, there's a lot of contemporary film directors I would have loved to have talked to. Sidney Lumet, some famous actors. I think it'd be fun to go to, James Stewart, to tell me what your life was like. Right? Or, that's not actually a very good James Stewart. I used to do a better one. You got to shake like you've got Parkinson. Not now. Now, you Mr. Whippersnapper Marc Emery. Something like that. I used to do much better impressions. That's a practiced art you've got to work on.
Have you ever spoken to Tommy Chong?
Oh, Tommy's a friend of. Yeah. I like to think he's still a friend. He actually blocked me on Twitter because I said something nice about Trump, and Tommy's very Democratic Party, left wing. He's typically woke type of stuff, right? Most pot people are total communist woke types, right?
I had Tommy on the show a couple weeks back. So
yeah, but he and Jody are good friends. Yeah. They're big fans of each other. Jody adores Tommy. He's always been great to us, including me. He gave me my Lifetime Achievement Award in Amsterdam on behalf of High Times. All the time. Yeah, he wore free Marc shirts on TV all the time when I was in prison. He's actually a really wonderful guy who actually saw his career, I think, to me, he was, I didn't like the character of Leo on that 70s show. Yeah. I thought it was a terrible character. It probably did a lot of harm to the cannabis cliche stereotype. And in that period of time, I don't think Tommy was that happy. And I wouldn't say he was that successful. Once he went to jail, and he did so for his kids and his wife, he didn't need to go to jail. He had to take the rap for some fucking bongs he had nothing to do with. Right, but they had his image on them, and it was Chong bongs, right? And Tommy, in a really honorable way, takes 8 months prison so his wife and his child doesn't get charged, right? And then Tommy's life gets so way better after that. He goes to jail. He does absolutely the most he can with that experience. He writes a book after it called the Chong, Chong, if you want to look at it that way. It's a great book. He meets the Wolf of Wall Street in jail, and the Wolf of Wall Street's 2 books are directly a result of Tommy telling him how to write a good book, what's important in writing. And so Tommy is responsible for some great stuff that he won't even get credit for, because the 2 Wolf of Wall Street books are terrific, and they sucked up until the time Tommy told him, now this sucks, do this all again and do it this way. Tell about all your over-the-top, outrageous stories and all your conflicts, which, by the way, is also the method of a reality show. Reality shows don't really want reality. They want all your conflicts and enemies and arguments and petty disputes and over-the-top disputes, and anyone who hates you, that's what they want to show, because that's what people do. Because the point of a reality show is to feel superior when you watch it to the people you're watching on TV. You're supposed to think, what pathetic sods they are. Oh, fuck, I'm so much better than... And then you feel good, right? In a terrible way. It's a schadenfreude of the worst kind, right? But that's a reality show, and that's also like a lot of autobiographies have to be this way. So Tommy comes out of jail, and then he goes on tour. He starts doing a tour with Cheech. His book is out, and he's fucking bigger than ever. And I really love that about Tommy, that for the last 15, 16 years, now he's retired now, because he's had cancer of the prostate and surgeries, and, he's 82? He's still awesome. He still comes by to see Jody whenever he can at the store. And he's our greatest spokesperson, really. Yeah. There is no greater stoner pot person in the world more recognized than Tommy Chong, except there's one.
You.
And it's overlaps with the greatest black superstar of all time in all history. The most recognizable black man in the world is not Martin Luther King, though if he were, that would be an appropriate honor.
Ricky Williams.
But it's Bob Marley. Bob Marley's easily the most recognized black man ever, will ever be. more so than Barack Obama. Plus, he's more important to more people than Barack Obama or any other black person. Bob Marley was always for the underclasses. He was always for the poor. He was always for the marginalized. He was always against police brutality. He was the original Rasta that most anybody's ever heard of. Leonard Howell is the first Rasta, but Bob is just the patron saint of stoners, the patron saint of blacks, patron saint of Rastas, the patron saint of reggae. Bob Marley's influence cannot be overestimated. He is simply the greatest black superstar of all time, and his legacy is incredible. He had 13 children by 8 women. Most of them are musical geniuses. Certainly Stephen and Damien are. I wouldn't say Ziggy's a genius, but he certainly has had many beautiful songs. Yep. And, Rohan's great with Marley Coffee. I mean, they're very talented. That guy had some incredible genes. What's that?
What do you like to listen to when you smoke?
Well, Jody's got me listening to podcasts lately. Joe Rogan's podcast. I never heard a podcast, candidly, until about 2 weeks ago. I think Jody made me listen to one or something. And then I've been hearing more of them. And Joe Rogan asks good questions and he has great guests, right? And when you've got a audience of millions like he does, you can get the great guests. Wouldn't that be sweet, eh? If we could all get these incredible people on our podcast. Now I see you do.
I got you.
I know. I see you had Tommy Chong on. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Tommy will give interviews, right? Because, we don't know how many years Tommy has left or what his health is like. It's so nice of him to give you an interview.
Yeah.
Like relative to Tommy, I'm a nobody. I'm an interesting character and historically relevant for a lot of things, but Tommy's a superstar. Yeah. In many ways. And yet he's still so kind to people. To ordinary people. Like I consider you an ordinary guy, right? You're not Joe Rogan. I'm not Tommy Chong.
And whenever Cherry guy at Canuck games.
You interviewed Don Cherry?
No, I'm the guy that dresses up at the Canuck games as Don Cherry. But
I used to have season tickets to the Canucks, right?
Oh, yeah, so do I.
Starting in 2002, loved going to the games. That was in that great period with Bertuzzi, Naslund, and Morrison. Yeah. What do we call that? The West Coast line.
Yeah.
Boy, those were sweet days. And now I was in prison West Coast. I was in prison when we did the 2011, but believe me, I would have been very ashamed at that riot where I actually got tear gassed at the 1994 riot when we had the best time almost winning the Stanley Cup. In fact, everybody celebrated that we almost won the Stanley Cup. We didn't even need to win the Stanley Cup. The run to the Cup in 94 was so great with Bure and Linden. And I was at the Coliseum to see them win Game 6, which was fucking awesome. Bure scores on a breakaway. Fucking awesome. So we go into Game 7. It's in New York. We're all watching it at the Coliseum on the Jumbotron. We lose, but everybody's feeling awesome because we all were going, hey, what an incredible run, right? Like we were one goal away from winning the Stanley Cup. And we go downtown, and then the police fuck shit up because it's way too crowded. They freak out. They panic. They wade into the crowd. The crowd, unfortunately, some miscreants throughout the crowd go and break windows. And next thing you know, I live at Butte and Georgia, and I'm being tear gassed in my home. And I'm watching my tear gassing on TV. I see the police launching tear gas, and one lands 20 feet in front of the door of my building. And like an idiot, I go out to see what's going on. And I've never hurt so much in my life. Nothing the police ever did to me intentionally ever hurt me as much as getting tear gassed in the face during that first 94 Cup riot. And I had to run in the house with my son, and we just ran cold water on our face for 15 minutes. It was so painful. It's capsicum particulate matter. It's taken from the capsicum plant like hot peppers and then ground into a very fine dust, put in an aerosol, and that shit hurts, let me tell you.
What do you think? Do you watch the Canucks now?
I do. I've been really disappointed this year, though.
Yeah, me too.
I just don't get it. Streaky teams thwart me. Now I see every Raptors game. I'm much more a Raptors fan and I have 2 420 Canucks uniforms made by the team for me. Yeah. So I'm loyal. The Leafs made me one too. I got a 420 Emery jersey. It's a gorgeous Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. And of course the Leafs, I watched the Leafs because I lived in Toronto for 4 years. And my original team is the Leafs. I grew up a Leafs fan. I became a Canucks fan when I came here in 94.
Yeah.
And what a great year to become a Canucks fan. And I've been for 2 decades since. But I got to tell you, I'm much more into the Raptors. I'm totally vested in the Raptors. I'm very disappointed the NBA put shit like Black Lives Matter on the court or on uniforms. Keep the fucking politics out of all sports. Whatever politics. I don't want to hear politics from actors, sports people, or anything. You're just going to cause me to not go to games, right? Even if I agree with you, I don't want to see politics I agree with either. Keep that shit out, right? We shouldn't have to talk. The great thing about sports is you can meet a guy in a bar, talk about the game, and never know his sports or never know his politics.
Yeah.
Right? You might bring it up. This COVID shit sucks, but Bentley, like if I see a guy, I like talking about the Raptors. I like talking about the Canucks. I like talking about what's going on. I don't need to know your politics. I'd prefer never to know your politics unless that's what we're going to talk about. Right. But, I love Kyle Lowry, our greatest player. Definitely think we should put his jersey in the Raptors, but I don't like seeing Black Lives Matter on uniforms on the court. Stuff like Educate or, neutral, non-racially oriented ones, right? Because I don't buy into the fact that Canada is a systemic racist country. It's not. It's one of the most non-racist countries you'll ever find. Why do we know this? Because everybody from Africa wants to move here. They don't go to other countries in Africa. Why do we have tens of thousands of Somalians, of all people, in Canada? Because they didn't want to go somewhere in Africa where black people are. They didn't want to go somewhere in Africa or Asia where Islamic people are, which is what they are. They came to white Christian countries, millions of them, because this is freedom. It ain't free in Africa. It's not free in Asia. No Islamic country in the world is free. None of them vote, right? None of them have guaranteed charter rights like Canada, and none of them are going to be give people opportunity. So when the immigrant class comes here and they start bitching about a racist society, man, you are so spoiled and indulged to be allowed to say that, because it is not.
Did you play any sports growing up?
Well, hang on a sec. I got to get a glass of water. There's some strong weed here.
What's that you're smoking on? What strain?
I bet that was Island Pink, actually.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, my pot that I'm really liking lately is Miracle Alien Cookies. I've got capsules, shatter, flour, and some really great Temple Ball hash from it.
Oh, sweet.
Jody just said from the other room that it wasn't the Island Pink, so I don't know what it was. What was it, Jody?
It was LP weed. You don't want to.
It was crappy LP weed, but maybe that's why I coughed. But also, it's, I'm going to be working in the legal industry, right? So I have to be fair. This is the difficult challenge for me. Typically, the free market weed is you can get it of higher quality. Doesn't mean all free market weed is better than legal weed. It doesn't mean that at all, because there's a lot of free market weed that is not better than legal weed. But the thing is, if you want good legal weed, you have to pay that premium price. The mid-range and lower price legal weed, and there's a lot of really good pricing, but the weed's just not worthy, in my opinion. So, if someone were to ask me, I would say buy the more expensive legal weed, the stuff that's clearly like $12, $14 a gram, and you're going to get off. You're going to get high. It's what I would be smoking. And you'll smoke less of it than the mids or the low range, which appears to be a better deal for cost, but you're just going to have to smoke more to get high, so it's not a better deal.
And that's for sure. I'm usually the mid-range kind of guy.
Well, in the free market, if you get a regular supplier, you can get weed at $160 to $200 an ounce. It's really good.
Yeah.
And because the guy needs your business, once he sells you swag once, you go, that didn't really get me off. I wonder what else I can find. So your local guy has a vested interest. And if he's got just 1, 2, 3, or 5 strains, he's going to try and sell you something that's good, because he needs the repeat business more than the legal shops. The legal shops will want repeat business eventually, but considering every last one of them has the same supply, the Ontario Cannabis Store in the case of an Ontario shop, he could go to anybody's shop and buy that. They're all going to be similarly priced. Nobody can be much more than the Ontario Cannabis Store online store in the legal business. So, they're all selling. You got like nearly 1,000 shops in Ontario selling the same weed at the same prices of the same quality. They all look like Apple stores. So when people come to Emery Brothers in London, it's going to look like it's my place. It's going to look like a head shop. It's going to sell seeds. It's going to sell bongs, pipes, grow equipment, tents. You don't have to buy weed from me if you don't want to. You can buy seeds to grow your own weed or whatever you need to do that. Whatever is legally possible under an ACMPR, we're going to help you, or your 4-plant limit, or or if you just want to get good hot smoke, right? 80% of the clients of most cannabis shops in Ontario are getting indica flower. That's, most sales are indica flower. Not many people ask for sativa. Very few people ask for hash or bubble hash, right? Those are elite tastes that are by and large covered well in the black market and will take time to transition to the legal market. But some of my friends have legal businesses now producing bubble hash, like Marc Richardson Bubble Man is involved in a company that's producing hash. My friend, the Butter King, who's retired from the old legacy industry, has got legal stuff coming out. So in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see some really nice quality micro grow weed. We're going to see some great bubble hash, tremendous hashes. It's going to take time, but eventually everybody's going to transition who's looking at the long term into the legal industry. They have to. There is no future in the black market or free market because the government can seize your assets or money like they did with me.
Yeah.
Why am I looking to work at a place, in Ontario at $20 an hour, or my brother will pay me more, but why am I looking to work there? Because I'm broke. If you've got my criminal record and my reputation for a variety of things, my political reputation, alleged sex scandals, I've been called transphobic, homophobic, racist, sexist, COVID denier, anti-masker. It's all insane. I'm the same person I've been all my life, exactly the same point of view. I oppose the government, but I also have to swim in the same dirty water as everybody else. So yeah, I think the legal regime sucks, but I've got to work there because I've got to earn a living. I've got, people who are counting on me, family in Medellin, Colombia. I've got obligations here. I got back taxes to pay and a fine I still got to finish paying. Yeah. I'm not in a position to just diddle around and wait for the perfect job. I got to get to work like every other responsible adult human who's got obligations.
Do you think the government regrets waiting so long to legalize it now that they've seen how much money they're making?
First of all, government never regrets anything. When you say, does the government regret? The government doesn't regret any bad war where they killed tens of thousands of people. The government doesn't regret policies that put hundreds of thousands out of work. They're not going to regret anything they did. Everything they did regarding COVID was wrong.
Yeah.
Locking down the economy, terrible, disastrous decision we'll be paying for years. Holding young people responsible for preserving the lives of the elderly is the stupidest, to me, the word genocide applies to a race, but something that's destroying a whole younger generation. A policy was put in place to harm and damage our entire young generations in favor of older people, largely over 85 and 90, who would have died months later anyway. For that matter, a lot of them would have died of the flu, but the flu hasn't really been recorded as the flu. It's being recorded as COVID.
Yeah.
So government, let me tell you, government doesn't regret anything, ever. They will never apologize. And if they do, they'll apologize for stuff that another government did 100 years ago, so that it's not really them. Trudeau won't apologize for anything he's done. He'll just apologize for shit that happened 100 years ago that he's so woke to appreciate as being an injustice now. But he's not woke enough. He's so woke he can't see his own injustices right now. And that's classic wokeism. Right? The wokies never see their totalitarian nature now in the present. They just want everybody to repent for the totalitarian or unfair, unjust actions of people who are long since dead that we have no responsibility to represent.
One of the questions I asked you earlier about who you would sit down for dinner with, my answer to that would be Seth Rogen. Have you ever smoked with Seth Rogen, being that he's from Vancouver?
No, you could list off people I've smoked with, and there's a lot of sports figures and movie figures.
Anyone that stands out?
Well, Woody Harrelson smoked with me a lot. He used to visit a lot too when he made movies in Vancouver. But I haven't been in Vancouver for much of 10 years, so I wouldn't know. I provided weed for Bill Maher. I provided stuff to John Cusack, Owen Wilson. Not necessarily cannabis, and I won't tell you what because that's unfair.
You don't have to say that shit. I just meant like smoking.
but I hung out with them, right? Some people aren't just into pot, and some people needed something different at the time than pot. Woody Harrelson is strictly a pot person. Let's see. Well, actually, he's probably done tons of other shit, but not with me. And there, like I'd have to go through movies. Guys I really liked, though, like Sean Paul was great because he was on the cover of Cannabis Culture. He gave me backstage passes to meet him one time. We smoked weed together. Very friendly, good guy. Really accommodating when we needed him to do stuff for us for the magazine. So he gets kudos for that. Because, when a star is much bigger than we are, they're doing you a favor. When they're the same level as us, it's like promotion for them. And when they're not as big as us, they're grateful. Because, you're always looking to the more famous people to elevate you up to a higher level, right? That's how you're going to get there. You're getting discovered by people who are important. So, that was back in my heyday, which was like 1997 to 2010. I met famous people all the time and hung out with them. When I came back, it's funny, I went to prison in the United States in 2010 and came back in 2014. And the world changed incredibly by then. Before 2010, I never heard the term whiteness or white privilege or transphobic or any of that shit. And then when I got out, the world was awash in this kind of wokeism that had seized the world, like the Western world, the English-speaking world, Canada, UK, America, by some weird, perverse storm.
Oh, and the cancel culture shit's happening all over the place.
That happened. Yeah, for the weirdest shit too, like stuff people don't even. And here's the thing: cancel culture is. You'd think, people want an apology. They don't want an apology. When somebody from Me Too accuses somebody of some shit 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, or somebody finds some racist tweet from 20 years ago, or some homophobic or trans, whatever, they don't want an apology. Nobody wants to come together and make it right. They just want to humiliate the other person. It's all about humiliating your enemies, right? So humiliating your enemies is what cancel culture is all about. It's not about an apology. So people should never apologize for any of this shit, because an apology won't help you, right?
Really only change the future.
Well, what happens is you simply have to wait for the mob to move on. Because, look at Justin Timberlake. He's groveling like crazy a week ago because he's got a movie coming out. Normally, he's groveling because a new documentary called Framing Britney Spears makes Justin look like a bad boyfriend when he was 18 or 19 because he joked when they broke up. And apparently that traumatized Britney Spears, right? And I'm thinking, fuck it. Some kid when he's 18 or 19, 18 years ago, he's being dragged up by saying he was rude to his ex. And now that ex has 1 million fans who want Justin to apologize, or they're going to bomb his social media with hateful, negative shit.
Yeah.
So he has to go, I'm sorry I didn't do. I'm thinking, oh, for God's sake, shut up. Right. But he has to do it because he's got a feel-good movie now out on Netflix or some shit where he has to play a nice guy. And he can't be the nice guy if all of Britney's fans are calling him a piece of shit because he was rude to her, right? So his manager said, whatever, say this piece of shit. Your fans won't care in a negative way, right? And sure, guys like me will just Justin Timberlake, but I'm not his target market. Although, I actually like Justin Timberlake and play his music fairly, often. And I wouldn't change that because he had to grovelingly apologize. But no apology works. They're still coming at you, and they'll want more. They want you to be humiliated. So if that means getting fired, or losing a job, or losing your place at a newspaper, or losing your position on a board of directors, whatever it takes to humiliate you, that's what they want.
So I got really one good question left anyways. Basically, what are you up to these days? And is there anything you would like to promote or talk about before we wrap this up here? I don't want to keep you too long. Jody's cooking.
I spent 6. Actually, we're starving too, so you're right about that. And the food's ready. Okay, well, so that's good. Okay, here's what's happening. I like to be in Colombia with my girlfriend or children or family, but most of the time I'm not. I'm only there 3 months of the year. We have an apartment. You can get a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom new apartment on the 24th floor for 650 Canadian a month. That's the only apartment I have. I don't actually have a place. I'll be living with friends in Hamilton when I start working out there later this month. I'll be working at my Emery Brothers cannabis store starting in May, and I'll probably live in the basement of that shop because I don't need an apartment. Or somewhere convenient, just easy like that. I own next to nothing. I just have a few boxes of possessions. But this month, I'm going to enjoy spending time with Jody and meeting a few friends here in Vancouver, watching the Raptors on TV, and smoking good weed, and then getting ready to work for the rest of the year, starting in 2 or 3 weeks. And otherwise, that's everything. I'm not promoting anybody or anything. And if someone wants to hire me to promote them, I'm certainly open to that. But really, I just, I'm looking forward to starting work on a daily basis. I've been in retail all my life, love meeting people. People will drive hundreds of miles to buy pot from me and hang out and talk, and I'm looking forward to doing that.
For sure. Thank you for taking the time today. I appreciate it, and it was really good. And I'll edit it,
Great,
get
right?
it back to you in the next couple of days, and enjoy your dinner.
Yeah, thanks. Well, whenever you put it up, that's fine. You don't have to show me.
Okay, we're off air on this part. Is there anything you want cut out, or just want to?
No,
Anything?
no,
Nope.
nothing. No, it was great. It was good.
Okay, perfect.
So that's why I don't need to see it before you do it. Just send me the finished one and I'll promote it.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, man. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.